It's 9:30 p.m. and you have 4 more assignments due by 11:59. You get a call from your friend and they let you know that their dog has passed away. You wake up late for work. And once you get there, your boss yells at you and writes you up. All of those things I listed would induce stress in just about anybody. But what is stress? Why is it so prevalent in everyone's lives? And how does it affect our minds, bodies, and lives? And what can we do to properly manage it? My name is Elle Wright, and I'm here to give an informative essay or informative speech on stress. So let's start with answering the question, what is stress? So the Cleveland Clinic would define stress as the body and brain's natural response to any demand, challenge, or change. That being said, a demand, challenge, or change could happen anywhere, anytime. Maybe you start a new job. Maybe those assignments are really starting to, back themselves up on you. Either way, stress is typically seen as a negative aspect in life. So let's start with the negative aspect of stress, or what is known as distress. So distress shows itself typically in a negative light, and it's often, more than not, a pretty immediate effect of what's going on. So when we talk about distress, our body experiences that in a myriad of ways. And there was an endocrinologist back in the day by the name of Dr. Hans Selye, and he proposed a 3-step model to really kind of like break down stress physiologically, and it's called the general adaptation syndrome. So the first step of that syndrome is called the alarm reaction. It's your fight or flight phase. So what happens in that first step is a spike in our heart rate, excessive perspiration, hyperventilation, things of that nature. And that is due to the dump of adrenaline and cortisol from our central nervous system into the rest of our body. The second stage of the general adaptation syndrome is what's known as the resistance stage or the adaptation stage. And that's when your body starts to get used to all of the first step stressors or signals. The first steps signals. So for instance, if we're embedding ourselves in stress, or stress is embedding itself in our lives more often than not, our body will get used to having a higher heart rate, which leads to high blood pressure and a myriad of other health problems. It can, down the line, lead to a heart attack. And a little bit less down the line, it'll come to our third stage, which is exhaustion, or the coping stage. So when we're exhausted from a lack of proper stress management, the way that it typically shows itself is just poor immune health. So you become more susceptible to being sick, and your judgment gets a little cloudy. So that can really affect your performance in life, in work. It can start to damage your healthy relationships, not only with your friends, but with family, loved ones, even pets. So that'll bring me to my second point, and that's kind of like the physical and mental aspects of distress on the body. We talked about poor health. We talked about kind of like a loss of routine. So when you're experiencing the cope stage in full swing, of course, your immune system will kind of like lose some gusto there, but you'll start to lose track of your routine, which means your hygiene could drop, which means you're probably going to get a little bit more sick if you're not taking good care of yourself. Your mood can decrease, and if you're walking around in a bad mood and being apathetic towards everyone in your life, most likely things aren't going to get a little bit better than you, causing your relationships to kind of crumble. And so that being said, that'll kind of move me on to my third point, which is going to be proper stress management. So I'm pretty sure everyone under the sun knows that exercise is the best way to achieve lower levels of stress, because when we're stressed, especially during that first stage, or when we feel the effects of stress on our bodies, it's the higher heart rate, it's the adrenaline, it's the cortisol. But we can exercise and get 2 out of those 3, and we can replace the cortisol with oxytocin. And oxytocin is kind of lovingly referred to as the hugging hormone, It's released when you see someone that you love and, maybe you haven't seen them in a long time. Or the new episode of your favorite show has just come out and you're so excited to sit down with a bowl of popcorn and watch it. So exercise is most likely going to be your number one way to relieve some of that stress. Another great way to, I guess, in the long term, really resolve stress is diet. Junk food leads to poor health. Poor health can lead to distress. And a lack of, proper sleep will, of course, induce stress. If, no one's perfect in the morning. I know I'm not perfect in the mornings, but a good sleep routine, waking up at the same time, going to bed at the same time, those little things can really, affect mood, affect performance, and overall affect stress levels. Another thing that can really help is just spending time doing what you actually love to do. If you're a person that's geared on a certain hobby, or you love seeing your friends, love seeing your family, make those a priority when you're experiencing stress in your life, and make sure to keep your coping mechanisms healthy like that. More often than not, we have these acute stress reactions that become cumulative, and we end up getting to that third stage, which is improper coping. So instead of going out to have a drink and doing it in excess, make yourself a nice meal, because unhealthy coping mechanisms do not resolve stress at the end of the day. And so I know we've talked about distress, but let's talk about eustress just for a second. So dis, D-I-S, is the prefix to distress, whereas EU or U is the prefix to eustress. Dis means bad or not. Eu typically means good. So when we speak of eustress, we take the same stress reactors in our life, whether that's assignments kind of loading themselves up on you, whether it's the task or challenge of having to learn or take on a new project at work. If we see it more so as a building block instead of an obstacle, you can kind of trick your brain into using the stress to your advantage. And speaking of trick your brain, some more coping mechanisms that we can do just in the face of that first stage of stress is take a couple deep breaths. There's a breathing exercise called Wim Hof, and it's when you take a lot of quick, rapid breaths in succession, hold, and do a long exhale. There's also square breathing, so different breathing routines that we could do. And honestly, stretching. Stretching is a great way to, get some blood flow going and just overall kind of quickly relieve stress, as well as meditation. You don't have to be a Buddhist monk to meditate. You can sit for 30 seconds and think about something that you love. You can think about clearing your mind of all thoughts, or you could think of a solution to your problem. All of those would be examples of eustress, especially meditation. It's a great way to kind of alleviate the immediacy of the distress and really just try to keep yourself on your own side. So in conclusion, stress is something that everybody experiences, but at the end of the day, it comes down to how we manage it, making sure that we manage it healthily, because there will come a day, whether it's in your life with a loved one, whether it's at work, or whether it's with school, something will start to bear down on you. But you have to remember that you cannot let the stress take you over. You cannot allow your health or your performance to drop just because you're stressed. We use the stress to our advantage sometimes, even though it may be a rocky road getting to that point.